Croeso, hello, welcome to RobRyanRed. On today's podcast, we'll take a look back at Wrexham's draw of Leyton Orient, the defeat at Stevenage, talk about a potential return to Europe, and look ahead to this weekend's clash with Northampton Town. All that and more on today's show.
RobRyanRed.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube today, shout out if you are. Myself and Nath look very, very ill. I think for only the second time in RobRyanRed history, we're doing an early morning record, aren't we, after the Stevenage game last night? We're not going to be on our best form, are we?
Well, I was off last week. I was away in Madrid. You had Sutty on.
Yeah.
And I was very much sunning it up. Yeah, I mean, you're very lucky that I cut out parts of the fact you were missing me and Sutty was missing me, and you made it known in a variety of ways. But I'm back. I would say delighted to be back, but it's been a fairly chastening welcome to the league week, and we look so ill, and we're both dressed in grey, and I'm about to jump on another flight, so I'll be editing this in the depths of night in Porto, in Portugal. Boo-hoo for me. But no, I'm glad to be back. Wrexham, I think we finally had our welcome to the league moment, and I think we thought that was Birmingham, but really Birmingham a different level, and I think this week Orient and Stevenage have very much emphasised the grind and the unforgiving nature of League One. So, yeah, am I too dispirited? Not massively, but we need to improve. We need to learn quickly.
It's a tough life being a Wrexham fan, isn't it? Second in League One. Where's it all gone wrong? Where has it all gone? The wheels have fallen off, and we're second in League One.
The inquest.
The inquest begins here. Parky out. That should be our thumbnail, shouldn't it, on YouTube? Genuinely, though. It's a difficult one. We spoke about this, I think, a bit last season, actually, didn't we? In the, setting your stall out very early days. We both said in our pre-season predictions that we just missed out on the playoffs, didn't we? I think, right at the start of the season. I think I put us down for 10th or 11th. And as the season had progressed and we saw the early stages, we both probably reevaluated that a little bit. Thought, playoffs are doable. There's going to be that opening for second spot. Get a bit giddy after a first few wins. That's absolutely fine. The issue for Wrexham at the moment is, in isolation, the last two results weren't good enough. But what I don't like, obviously being a Wrexham fan these days, is the sort of wider media scrutiny and narrative that if we don't go up this season, which I still don't expect us to go up this season, genuinely, hand on heart, first season back in League One, huge gulf in quality still, that we've got to adapt to. That's absolutely fine. That's not a criticism. That's being realistic. It's the fact we were top quite early on, it will look like Wrexham have bottled it. What went wrong for Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney? Where did the wheels come off? When, in truth, if we'd started with mixed results and sort of built our way up to second, would be so positive right now. But it feels like we're losing a little bit of momentum. And the last four performances haven't been ideal. But look, 9 games into the season, we're second in the league, only behind Birmingham. We would take this every day of the week, wouldn't we? So I just want a little bit of positivity before we get going, because, come on, look where we are. Let's not get greedy. We've gone, in 2 seasons with National League to the top end of League One. I know in isolation, and you can still be critical of what we've seen, but let's just have a little moment of, because I was on socials last night, and it's always the same after any Wrexham defeat. It was slamming big players who didn't play well. It was criticising Parky. Come on. Let's have a little bit of positivity for the season ahead, because there's so much left to play for.
Maybe we need it. You being the uber positive one. Maybe we need to record in the morning. Maybe flip the narrative. I don't know. Usually in the afternoon, maybe you get a bit cranky, and I don't know what happens to you. Maybe you get slightly more pessimistic as the day wears on. So maybe if I catch you first thing in the morning, that's when we're going to get this uber positive. But you're right. Look at it this way. Huddersfield have lost, I think, in all competitions, 7 of the last 8 or 6 of the last 7, something like that. They are free fall, and I see their fans talking about, we're mid-table, we're bottom half of League One. We're not what we thought we would be. And they started, remember they thrashed Bolton at Bolton 4-0, I think it was. You look at Bolton, they started horrendously, get rid of Ian Evatt, or that's what people were saying, Evatt out. they won the last 2 or 3, and suddenly they're in good spirits again. John McAtee's
We've only scored one more goal than we've only scored one more goal than Bolton this season.
So you look at it optically. I look at it and go, Stevenage, a friend of mine's a season ticket holder at Stevenage. They've got the best defence in the league, not just in his opinion. I mean, numerically, they've conceded the least amount of goals. So I kind of knew going in that was going to be a 0-0, a 1-0. It was always going to be very tight. Alex Ravel's got them really well drilled, and as my friend texted me last night, he said on any other night that's just a 0-0. It's just there's very little in that game really. They've scored a long range stunner. I saw people pinning the blame on Arthur for that. I think that's harsh, maybe.
No, it's on midfield right, for me, that.
Yeah, it's right in the corner. I mean, we'll get into the actual game shortly. It's right in the corner. But the text that he sent me was, look, on another night, that's a 0-0. We are incredibly difficult to break down. And ultimately, I think he was surprised by our lack of goal threat, in terms of the amount of players we've had at the disposal, what we brought off the bench. I think he was surprised just how comfortably they nullified us, really, and that's something to go away and work with. I think, across the 2 games, we've afforded them a lot of the ball, particularly at Leyton Orient. We afforded them a lot of the ball. That means you're set up to break on the counter, and I just think going without the ball for large periods, it does make it tough on you. You do have to do a lot of defending. You do have to stay switched on, and that can be tiring. And I don't know. I think rather than just lambast the last 2 performances or the last 4, if you want to think, Crawley was not vintage. I know we won that game, and then Birmingham was Birmingham. Parky said take our medicine, didn't he? He said that's what we've got to do. Players have got to take their medicine. I think they've got to learn quickly. You've got to learn quickly at this level because it's not very forgiving. And I think we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot more in the last 4 than we did the 4 or so before that.
Yeah, and again, like you said, the Stevenage result is similar to the Crawley one. That on another day you could have drawn that, to be honest. But they had that huge miss in that game, and there was some wasted opportunities as well. So it sort of evened it out. When we're looking back at the Stevenage game, then I think WhatsApp groups and Twitter sort of messages across the country were saying, across the world really these days, we're excited by that lineup. Some big calls from Parky. Had Lee, Cannon, Mullin, and Palmer all on the bench. Obviously, they were all required by the end of the game to come on and try and salvage something. Maybe this was a little message to us, the ones who are always asking for change, that look, there is a sort of best 11 still that stands out for a reason, because those who came in, anyone stand out for you? I thought Dan Scarr was pretty good, no nonsense at the back. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Not sure maybe how the makeup of the centre sort of defence looks without Max now. Would you say it's O'Connell on the right, although he's been better through the middle? Just because Dan Scarr, I think I'd rather have a no-nonsense central centre back, but I thought Scarr was good. George Evans sadly, went off with the injury, which is another big setback for Wrexham. Didn't really get to see too much of him. I thought Marriott worked hard without any sort of end product. Stephen Fletcher, he's still looking like he's going to just be an impact player from the bench, isn't he? Sadly, maybe there is. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision to keep him in the summer, but when you sign Mo Farl, you wonder why he's not getting the opportunities.
So, lots to unpack there, and my brain is processing at a 0.5 speed this morning, so that's good. That's useful. I very much like the team when it come out, so I don't want to sit here and lie to you this early in the morning, Rich. I don't want to get off on the wrong foot on this Wednesday morning. So I was happy with the team. I felt like for a while now, a lot of people have been saying move McLean into midfield, give Lee a rest, because we burned him out basically to a crisp last season. Put Revan in. Scarr was always going to come in after the Max injury. Barney, I think, was our best player at Leyton Orient, and I would argue was probably our most threatening player at Stevenage. I think he's been one of our best players this season. Obviously, Arthur's going to play back three. He was going to pick itself. You and I and others have said, let's have a look at Evans and Dobson as a pair, away from home, particularly in games where we need to get on the ball. And
must listen to the podcast, mustn't they?
And I thought they shouldn't. They really shouldn't listen to the podcast. If Parky is doing that or any of his staff, please immediately stop. We were calling for Evans and Dobson. I thought Evans made an impact at Leyton Orient when he came on. We did look better when he came on. So you put McLean in midfield, you put Revan in, you've got pure pace out wide. And I felt like the front line needed freshening up. I wasn't against Fletcher coming in. File doesn't seem to be that close to it at the minute. Marriott, we were saying probably deserves it ahead of Mullin. So, yes, with the benefit of hindsight, it didn't really work. But that lineup for me, I was more than happy with when it dropped.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and like you say, it would be hypocritical now for us to say that was the wrong lineup because we were so happy at the time that we were doing something new. And even then, I'm not necessarily saying that it's the wrong lineup going forward. It obviously needs a lot of work. I think part of the problem was the team just hadn't really gelled. You could tell lots of those players hadn't played together. They didn't really have the minutes under their belts. And maybe it's one of those where you can work towards having that lineup, but making those changes altogether just had too much of a detrimental impact on the team. We were losing a bit too much. The defence were learning together, the midfield was still learning together, and then you've got a strike force who don't really know each other either. So maybe there was too much change across all positions. And obviously, if we had Max, we would have had a settled back three, which would have helped. And then the midfield, you can maybe get away with I felt there were too many gaps and too many players who just didn't really know their roles and responsibilities as well as the team we've been seeing for the first weeks of the season, just because they've played together so much. So, yeah, we're not going to criticise the lineup too much because I think there's even the argument that, look, when we brought these better players on, we still didn't really look like scoring a goal, which is disappointing. But like I said,
I would have picked that. I would have picked that team if I'd have had the choice. I'd have picked something very, very close to that. And one of my main takeaways, Rich, was, and again, I'm not slamming him in any way, but I think we saw the fact that Fletcher starting games isn't really a viable option going forward. He is just better as a 20-minute impact sub. I know that leaves that puts a lot on Ollie Palmer, who, most of us don't think can play 2 games in a week. But it is going to mean that, look, Mo Fowl, and it's not sink or swim. I was about to say it's sink or swim for him. And no, he's got so much time to develop. He's very young. They've spent nearly, what did James McLean say, 590,000, 600,000 as the record buy. For him not to even be getting in the squad, he's not been brought here to play against Wolves under 21s. So there's going to come a point where, I get it, you're having two starting strikers, you're having 2 on the bench, and typically that's going to be Marriott and Mullin and Palmer and Fletcher. So it kind of leaves Farl as the 5th odd one out. But I think you might have to make some tougher decisions going forward in terms of it's Palmer or Fletcher and it's Farl. Or it's going to be Mullin and Marriott. Those 2 are going to be locks in a matchday squad. But maybe you have to be a little bit more ruthless in a Fletcher or a Palmer, and then you get Farl in there. But maybe Farl offers you something a little bit different, a little bit more gangly, a little bit quicker maybe as that big man. I know he's not pacey. And I'd also say, Rich, I know we've been, both of us, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, we've both been suggesting that Dobson and Evans can work together. What from the evidence I saw against Stevenage, I think it might be an either or. I didn't think that quite worked. Now maybe it's need time to figure out which one can go, which one can sit, but it felt like both were sitting, and then we were sitting off in midfield. McLean was kind of then being asked to do probably too much, and was one of his most ineffective games for Wrexham, really, in that number 10 role. And you saw, their guy, Lewis Thompson or something like that. Thompson had the freedom of Stevenage to shoot into the bottom corner. I just didn't look. Maybe it's just new. Maybe it's just a new line that we trialed and people didn't quite gel. But a lot of these players spent a lot of time together already, and I felt we looked like strangers more than I'd seen in a while.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that one. I think that, maybe that isn't the solution we thought it would be, although I still think there is a bit of promise there personally. I just wonder if maybe it would be, I think it depends on your opposition. If you're going to someone like a Birmingham away, or you're playing against a team where you're not expecting to have too much of an outball, then maybe it would be Dobson, Evans and Cannon in midfield rather than someone like McLean. And you just sort of sacrifice any sort of creativity or breaking the lines, really, and just have workmen there. So I think it's always got to depend on who you're playing. I agree that maybe it is a reality check, and Evans, for the foreseeable, probably going to have to be a sub at best. And I agree with you that although we we all know that Parky likes to ease players in, and Farl will get his opportunities in the years to come. Maybe by the end of the season, he'll be knocking on the door for a start. Surely you give him the experience at least of being on the bench, because it's not really on him. If he comes on for 20 minutes and he doesn't make that much of an impact, that's not down to him. That's just down to maybe the circumstance of the game. So we'll see. But, in Parky we trust. It should all be fine still. It is just, it's just the reality check that did feel like it could be coming at some point, and you just kind of hoped that it wouldn't come this early on in the season. But like I said, there's plenty of time to learn. How are you feeling then about the table? Because I know we did say, and so you said last week, don't look at it until 10 games. We're 9 games in now, so we're having a bit of a cheeky early look at it, really. If you look at the teams we've played, though, we've played Birmingham, who are top in the table. The next best team we've played are Stevenage, who are 9th. Oh, Wycombe we played as well, didn't we, who are 8th. So we played 1st, 8th, 9th, 11th, and 12th. There's still a lot of the promotion playoff pack that we haven't played yet. Interestingly as well, Mansfield are 3rd, Stockport are 5th. Blackpool look like they could be a team to beat now as well under Steve Bruce. Have you reevaluated your expectations for the season? Are you reacting to these two poor performances back to back, or are you still confident we can get the playoffs?
Where to even begin with that? Like I told you, my brain's on a 0.5 processing speed, so let's just do one question at a time. Firstly, I was going to say, I actually was in Euston Station, I can't remember, a week or so ago, and I saw the Blackpool players all waiting for a train, Steve Bruce, and there's a lot of backslapping there and a lot of well done. Their fans were very happy. And it can change quickly. Blackpool, I mean, what did they sack the manager a couple of games into the season, and then, Steve Bruce gets appointed and really unpopular. I think we might have even mentioned on the podcast how people were kind of turning their nose up at Steve Bruce, and now we're saying they might be the pick to finish second. We weren't saying that a few weeks ago. Look, things chop and change very quickly. I'm not massively low on Wrexham after the two games. I think it's if I take it as 4 games, I think it's been a pretty chastening 4 games. Particularly Birmingham. Crawley was tricky, but you get over the line. Stevenage was tricky, and you don't get over the line. And what I will say is, I think there'll be more defeats like that. There will be more games like that, and so I don't necessarily want to use today as my opportunity to fly off the handle and be raging at a performance, because I'm sure that'll come at some point. This just isn't it for me. It's a really bad one. Credit to the fans that trekked all the way down there on a school night, as they always say over here. So, it's a long way to go for a performance that didn't give you a lot, didn't inspire you very much. I mean, you haven't made their keeper work. That's always very frustrating. The Leyton Orient game, again, I didn't really feel like we created a great deal. And that's for Parky to work out. I think what Parkinson's got right now is a lot of tools, a lot of pieces of a puzzle, and I think he's still figuring it out. Rathbone, we really haven't seen unlocked yet. I listened to Sutty, or I edited Sutty last week, didn't I? I edited you two, drawing on about various things. And Sutty said, not quite sure what Rathbone is, doesn't think he's the lead type, thinks he's more of the Cannon type. I've been very high on Andy Cannon this season, but he was probably one of our worst performers at Leyton Orient. So, players are going up and down right now, and I think this is... when I think about a promotion team, Rich, this is a very long-winded answer to say I still think Wrexham will get the playoffs, but when you see promotion teams, or when I see teams at any level that get promoted, it isn't those nights where you're playing a Birmingham or you're playing a Wrexham and you're setting fireworks off and you got Tom Brady and David Beckham. They're easy to get pumped up for. I know we lost that, but it's very easy to get pumped up for those games. It is the grind of the season. Stevenage on a Tuesday, and I think we've got another 8 games in... another 3 games in 8 days coming up soon. You've got, trips to Cambridge. Yeah. Lincoln's been postponed now, which is a good chance to rest. Yeah, which will
be another Tuesday night, won't it?
Yeah, so that'd be another Tuesday night. But, we've got Huddersfield on a Tuesday, we've got Cambridge on a Tuesday. I think is there a point where we've got to go down to Exeter, and then we've got another southern trip soon after? There's a lot of games where it's just a grind, and it's just, it gets on you, especially when it's dark really early. It sounds like I'm making a load of excuses here, but it's just true. These teams that can navigate that and can just win consistently and get points, that they deserve their promotion. So for us, there'll be more nights like Stevenage. I'm sorry to say it, that there will be more performances where we're left disappointed.
It kind of reminds me of last season when we lost back-to-back to Newport and Salford, though. Do you know what I mean? And then it would have been very easy to be like, oh, the wheels have come off, what's gone wrong?
Salford was bad. Salford, maybe because I was there and I wasn't there for Stevenage, but Salford, I came away from Salford angry at that performance, and people turned on Parky a bit. The last night was bad, but it's so early that...
Yeah, and we had the similar at Doncaster last season, which we lost, but that was near the end of the season, we still got over the line. What I'm trying to say is, look, it's not like these things happened before and we've been fine and we've recovered from them. And I'd also say, the caveat is, who cares? We're going to be playing in the Europa Conference League in about 2 years' time anyway. So, yeah, like I said, the challenge now is to respond against Northampton this weekend. If we do that, I think lots of people's mood will change very quickly again as well, because Fortress Kairos and all that, and that'll be the bread and butter for us this season. We're still in such a good position. The criticism is understandable. We need to learn a lot from it, but we'll see what comes on next, won't we?
Rich, the thing is as well. I think, and I always stand by this, because you're seeing a lot of strong opinions on social media. I think they're not beyond criticism, and criticism doesn't equal a meltdown. I get there were some reactions last night that were very strong, and in my opinion too strong for what is a very short window. I haven't even had 10 games of the season yet, and we did really well for sort of the first 5 of those games. But you are able to criticize players. Any criticism isn't you shouldn't just have to accept a poor performance because you're second, you're doing really well. You can, in isolation, criticize performances and performers. And I think Parky, while he wasn't ripping into players, I thought was quite strong after the match, Rich. He said that he needs to get to the bottom of why players' heads drop so much when we concede a goal. And I thought that was really interesting. And he ended his kind of briefing with the club to say, or his post-match briefing with the club to say, players have got to improve. It wasn't subtle. It was a clear shot at the players, or message to the players, that they've got to improve, they've got to be better, because it's an unforgiving league. What you might have got away with in the national, or what you would have got away with in the National League, we sort of didn't get away with in League Two, and what you did get away with in League Two, you're not going to get away with now. And if Wrexham have real aspirations to be in the Championship, you're going to get away with even less. So, as he said, I'm going to steal the words of Phil Parkinson: take your medicine and improve.
So, Nath, as we teased before, potential for Wrexham to relive those European glory days. The Welsh clubs are in what have been described as transformational talks about potentially entering the Welsh EFL clubs, I apologise, which is currently Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham and Newport, in talks about joining the Welsh League Cup, which would give them a potential avenue to play in Europe again. The winners of the competition would go into a Europa Conference League qualification round. In doing so, they would give up the opportunity of qualifying for Europe via English club competition. So if Wrexham ever won the League Cup, finished runners-up in the FA Cup, or got top 8 in the Premier League, it could happen. We would be competing for Wales rather than England, so the only way to get Europe would be by winning the Welsh League Cup. You'd say right now Wrexham would probably be second favourites for the competition, maybe, depending on how Swansea and Cardiff fare for the remainder of the season. We are the third best Welsh domestic side in the English pyramid at the moment, but there's a lot of positivity and reason to believe it could be good going forward. The arguments for Nath are very beneficial for Wrexham, the chance to play in Europe again. They'll argue that it's good for the Welsh domestic game because some of the smaller teams, local semi-pro teams, get to play, the likes of Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham and Newport. They'll argue, just as they do in the FA Cup, that the money will trickle down to grassroots. What are your thoughts on it initially?
Firstly, I was going to say it's a great exclusive by David Pritchard at the BBC. Credit to him. I know we're both in the journalism game, Rich, and we should sort of give a hat tip to people who get good stories like that. I would say it's quite advanced for it to have come out now. I think there's probably been these discussions for a while. I know Deloitte, who do the Money League, they were commissioned by Swansea to do a report on basically how it would look It's the Nathaniel MG Cup, isn't it? That's its official name. I think Deloitte were looking into the benefits of improving the ecosystem of Welsh football, like you say, the financial redistribution. Would an Aberystwyth, would a TNS, would a Bala or whoever else would be in it, would they relish the chance to play Cardiff, Wrexham, Swansea, Newport, that the money that would generate? Probably, because they get into these qualifiers for the Conference League and immediately go out. I mean, TNS have got Fiorentina. They've done really well to get as far as they have. But typically, teams, Carnarvon or whatever, that you go out in the qualifiers, you never even reach the group stage. So would they look at it and go, "Wow, I wouldn't mind actually 4 games," or I don't know how it would work, if it'd be a group stage or just straight knockout or what. But would they want it, or is it just a vanity project for the 4 EFL teams that want the kind of cake and eat it, as the saying goes?
Well, yeah, it'll be. To me, it just stinks of these sort of these reforms that you get in the FA Cup and stuff, where you can complain about a congested fixture schedule, but then you're happy to add an extra tournament because it might benefit you and give you a pathway to Europe. I'd argue that, look, we've played a lot of these Welsh teams previously. We've had some good meetings with them in the Welsh Cup in years gone by. Would the novelty wear off quite quickly? I think it would, to be honest. You saw how it was when we were in the Tunnocks, when we were in the Scottish Challenge League Cup. Like the attendances for that, I know we were non-league at the time, we were playing teams that we'd never played before and we'll never play again probably, and there wasn't much demand whatsoever. And there would be if you got to a semi or a final, like with the FA Trophy. But I'd also argue, well, Carnarvon Town would rather play a European qualifier than play against Wrexham. Do you know what I mean? Like we're depriving them of the opportunity. I just think from Wrexham's point of view, it's very beneficial to do. And if we're playing in the Conference League, I will be loving it, and I would cherish those memories forever. But this does kind of stink to me of like the FA Cup reforms, where the big teams act out of the interest for the smaller clubs and convince them it's for their own benefit when it's really not. Wrexham, Swansea, Cardiff, and Newport wouldn't be entering this competition if it didn't guarantee them European football, because if they cared about the Welsh game so much, they'd just play these teams in pre-season, but they don't, and they'd help them out more, but they don't. And you might say it's to help the Welsh coefficient go up for UEFA standings, and in turn give better opportunities for the Welsh League. That's a load of that's crap to me. That is crap to me.
I was going to say, can we compare anything to the Tunnocks Wafer Caramel Cup or whatever it was? I don't know if we can. Actually, I don't know if we actually can compare anything to that. And if you didn't have to actually live through that, or you didn't experience Wrexham at the time, incredible. It just...
Yeah. Well, this is a note then, maybe, for any newer fans to Wrexham. Basically, what was it, the 2018 season, 2018-19? Or 17-18 season?
Something like that,
yeah.
Right?
There was a reform to the Scottish League Cup, so not their FA Cup equivalent, their League Cup equivalent, their secondary tournament, where they invited the 2 highest finishing National League teams who didn't get promoted or didn't get in the playoffs, maybe. But I think we did. I think it was after the Easter season.
Yeah, didn't go up.
They invited the 2 highest finishing Welsh Premier League teams, the 2 highest finishing Northern Irish teams, and the 2 highest finishing Republic of Ireland domestic teams as well, I think. So there was this bizarre situation where Wrexham were representing England and TNS were representing Wales in this almost like home Nations League Cup. Wrexham had some epic matches, again, mostly at home, and then we went out to Rangers Kids away from home at
Rangers
Ibrox,
Colts, Rangers
Colts.
Which
was a fantastic day out, a great experience. I'm glad I did. But
Rich, the way I look at it, I've thought a lot about it, because selfishly, would we, like this week, TNS are playing Fiorentina, would this week we like to be looking forward to Wrexham against Fiorentina? Of course we would. Imagine,
oh God, yeah, but that's so far away.
But I'm saying we would love nothing more than playing Fiorentina at the racecourse or going away to Florence or whatever. Of course we would. That's obvious. So anyone listening that says, "Oh, they're turning their nose," no, we're not. We would absolutely love and cherish. We didn't get to live through Porto or Anderlecht or Roma. These great these great nights that people talk about, and I've read up on, and Lingby, and I've read up on and watched and listened to people talk about, and they sound incredible. Looking up again the Porto result, which I'm going to, like I say, Porto this afternoon, and the idea that Wrexham played Porto,
knocked them out.
Knocked them out. You think, oh, it's crazy, but so people have lived through that, and there are fans who still talk about that and amazing. And of course, I would love as many people to experience a European night for Wrexham. But I feel like, you're in the English system. We've got ambitions of eventually getting to the Premier League. We should earn it the way the route we're in. We should earn it like everyone else in the pyramid we're in. Now, maybe that's cutting your nose off to spite your face a little bit. Some might say as a riposte to that. But I don't know. You're in the English system. I think the 4 teams are looking at this as going, well, this is our kind of sideways entry because we're stacked compared to the Welsh teams, the Welsh Prem teams. We're not going to win the FA Cup. Probably not even going to finish second in the FA Cup, and we're unlikely. I know Swansea had one run. Was that against Parky's Bradford, or I can't even remember now? And
they beat Parky's Bradford 5-0. Was it in the League Cup final? And then they played.
So
we beat Valencia in Valencia.
There was that run, but I mean, typically you're not gonna do it. You're definitely not gonna do it in League One and Championship or Premier League. Still a way to go for Wrexham, but I mixed feelings on it because would I like the possibility of Europe? Would I like the European? Would I like the results of it? Yeah, of course I would. Do I like it as a kind of theory and an idea right now? Not particularly.
No, it's again, it kind of be hypocritical of us, wouldn't it? We spoke up so passionately on the FA Cup reforms to then be like,
annoyed at that. I'm still annoyed.
But
I'm
then
still annoyed
for us to then say that this loophole works in our favour, so it doesn't matter, would be very hypocritical. The interesting thing as well, though, Nath, facts and figures here. If you want to know why Wrexham would be in favour of this, as well as the other Welsh clubs, it must be said that Swansea were the team, like you said, who commissioned the report. If Wrexham or any of the other teams won the Welsh League Cup, they'd go into a knockout playoff round for the Europa Conference League. If you get to that, you get €300,000 guaranteed. If you get to the group stage and win a game, and what is that? You play 8 times in the group stage, wouldn't you?
8 times.
Every time you win a game, you get €500,000, 500,000.
You basically get an Ollie Rathbone if you qualify, and you get a Mo Farl if you win.
Exactly, yeah,
more or less.
So it's very lucrative. You get even bigger sponsorship. You'd be able to attract a whole new sort of caliber of player by being able to give them European football as well. At that level, like. That's a huge coup. So we'll see what happens.
Rich, it's also one of those things where, like, if Wrexham just got stuck in League One, and again, I'm not overreacting, not saying we will. Holding my hands up for anyone who can see the screen.
But that's the reality still, though, Nath, isn't it? Because we are historically a League One club.
But
so
if you get stuck in League One, you're not going to qualify for Europe via the conventional means. Really, if you're being realistic, you'd have to have a fairy tale run. So I do wonder if the ownership or they're looking at it. Your Humphreys, your Mike Williamsons, people like that, they're looking at it going, this is our best route into European football. We're seeing TNS, as I repeat, they're playing Fiorentina. We saw Carnarvon play Legia Warsaw. These are huge nights that Wrexham are going to have to wait a long time to get in conventional methods, in conventional route. And I think Swansea are probably thinking the same. I think Cardiff are thinking... Cardiff are on free fall. Who knows? Wrexham might be playing them next season anyway, regardless of whether we go up or not. So I think from the 4 clubs' perspective, they're looking at it going, this is our shot. And if we can convince the FAW to do it, for the 4 clubs, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Again, I think we're both on the same page there, where... it might happen. The fact the reports come out like you said, this advanced suggests that it could be on the cards. But as selfish as it is, we might not be the good guys in this. But, that's our feeling on it. But when myself and Nath are in Florence watching Wrexham play against Fiorentina, we won't care at all, will we? Let us know your thoughts on it. RobRyanRed at gmail.com, RobRyanRed.com, and in the YouTube comments below.
Right, Rich. I'm going to read it. We need a dose of... I know you've been quite positive, but let me give you a dose of positivity on the emails. And also, to anyone who has emailed, I'm actually going to offer an apology, as even more so than normal, because I've just been all over the place. I was in Madrid, and I haven't. And Rich has been. We've been busy. I know everyone's busy, and
we've
that's
both
a
had like
excuse.
weeks off, haven't we, in the last
but
3 weeks?
We've both been all over the place. So I am going to try and get on top of it when I get back from Portugal. But we did get an email from Adam Bunga. I hope I'm saying that right. Hello from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, USA. Like a lot of people, I've become a fan of the team through the documentary, but I want to say thank you for making me a fan of football. Thank you very much for listening to the show, Adam. I really enjoy the show, and I've been following the documentary from the beginning, but just started following shows such as yours on YouTube over the summer. Discussions about Wrexham and the content provided has really sparked an appreciation of the game in me. I now watch every Wrexham match that I can and follow the team and the general EFL closer than ever before. Really enjoying growing my knowledge, and I love the sport. Appreciate your efforts. And then he also included a picture. Oh, and I'm also including a few pics of my 1997 Geo Metro, aka the Red Dragon, which I'm in the process of restoring back to its 1997 glory. Today I received my personal license plate. I'm going to see if I can show you this, because if you think me and Rich are fans doing this every single week, I've been in Rich's car. He doesn't have a personal Wrexham number plate, so I'm going to see if I can show you.
That just makes you a target on away days, doesn't it? Imagine if you want Birmingham away with your Wrexham license plate. You're just asking for. Okay,
that's the 1997. I mean, the little sticker there on the window. There you go.
I like this. I like the Cymru badge on the back as well. Yeah,
South
I'm
Dakota,
liking it.
Repping it. Yeah, we like it. Well, there you go. I'm going to stop sharing that because I just leak in someone's number plate. But there you go. Adam, thank you so much for the email. And to anyone else who's emailed, I sincerely apologise. I'm going to get on top of it because there's a giveaway. There's lots of things to sort, and I'm just slacking, basically. But, we'll get there, Rich. We'll get there. Probably, or hopefully we get there before Max and George Evans come back, because they don't seem like they're going to be coming back anytime soon.
It's a real shame for Max, isn't it, that the injury coincides with him having to play lots of EAFC 25, in which he looks like he's just arrived at Hogwarts, because, Jesus Christ, they must be releasing face scans of the Wrexham squad separately. The Wrexham players went to EA headquarters in Vancouver, and they've got the worst faces. I know lots of people don't care about video games, but those who do, it's almost unplayable how insulting those Wrexham faces are. They are diabolical. They're an absolute insult to Wrexham. How have they got so worse? Paul Mullin looks nothing like Paul Mullin. Max Cleworth looks like an actual child. And then Elliot Lee, he's meant to be handsome. I mean, they are abysmal.
Here we go. So the Two Beards guy with the Two Beards Wrexham podcast were the ones that shared it. I mean, really, this is Elliot Lee in FC 25. Huh?
If you watch it on YouTube, you're in for I'd say a treat, but you're really not. Even the kit, though, looks like it's drooping off him. It looks like it's melting off his body.
If you're listening, it's kind of... Elliot Lee's got I would say it's like a Ryan Barnett haircut. I mean, I know they're not massively dissimilar, but it kind of looks like Ryan Barnett with kind of Elliot Lee's eyes. I don't know. Well, I mean, if they're even Elliot Lee's eyes, I don't really know. But Dan Scott... There's Max Cleworth. Wow. If you're watching... Rich, Harry Potter.
Yeah, he's just been to the sorting cat, hasn't he? Yeah.
Dan Scar actually replied to, I don't know if it's, there you go. Think they've got you spot on, mate, said to Elliot Lee. I know he's on the wind up. Not ideal, that, is it, to be honest? And we were talking up the fact that some of the players went and they had their face scanned. I don't think Max or Elliot Lee were among those that actually went to EA headquarters in Vancouver, but yeah, I was expecting a lot better. That's probably more annoying than the results this week, the head scans of EAFC.
Well, those face scans are going to last forever now, aren't they? They've got to at least last for another 12 months, whereas that result will be forgotten by this weekend. And speaking of this weekend, then, Dave.
Go on, yeah.
Northampton Town. Yes, we caught up with Charles from It's All Cobblers to Me. We had a very extensive chat, actually, about what to expect this weekend. And yeah, here are his thoughts. So Charles, thank you very much for joining us today on the podcast. Wrexham versus Northampton. For one era of fan, I suppose, that'll bring back very happy memories for Wrexham. Promotion in 93, 4,000 away fans on a Tuesday night. And yeah, to think we didn't have any fans before Hollywood. Wrexham versus Northampton for you. Do you have any special memories that come to mind when this fixture comes around?
I wouldn't call them special memories, if I'm being honest with you. I've got one memory, and I couldn't possibly tell you exactly what season it was. I can give you kind of a year range, if you like. So it would have been early 2000s. and it was a game at the racecourse, and I think you won 3-2, and I think you had a penalty in that game that was retaken. So we saved the initial penalty. Lee Harper was in goal for us, and he saved, I think, the initial penalty, and then the referee asked for it to be retaken. Can't remember what that reason was, encroachment or something, pointless. And then you scored the retake. And my memory of it is so vivid because of the fact that I was in the away end, at the other end of, so looking at your old terrace, which I know is no longer there.
You were in the tech end, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I was young, so forgive me. I was young, I was a little bit foolish, and I kicked the seat that was in front of me, and I had white trainers on, and I had a red stain from that seat that I'd kicked until those trainers died and went to trainer heaven. I couldn't, no amount of scrubbing would get the stain off of it. So it's a ridiculous story. It's a ridiculous reason to remember a football match. But that's my only real vivid memory of a game between the Cobblers and yourselves. And it, as I say, was at the racecourse as opposed to being at our place.
To save anyone listening to it, 2001 it was. It was December 2001. Brian Carey, Martin Chalk scored the penalty, and Darren Ferguson got an 86th minute winner for us as well. So the penalty was to put us ahead. It was to equalise, actually. You took the lead, we equalised, you took the lead again, then we equalised and scored late on. There's some good names in those two lineups from that day. So let's hope for more memories this weekend. Northampton, what have you made of your season so far? What were your expectations heading into the League One campaign?
I think we've had it a little bit of a rough ride in terms of how we're dealt with by pundits and people. So Northampton are always looked at as being a team that at this level are going to struggle. And when we come up the year before last, we were immediately put as being going straight back down by pretty much everybody. And we defied that expectation fairly comfortably, I think, last season. We ended up finishing 14th. We could have finished higher. I think the issue that we had last year was that when we reached perceived safety, we kind of took our foot off the gas a bit. I think there wasn't essentially enough motivation for them to carry on kicking on, probably because of the mental slog when you're just told, right, we've got to reach this target. This is the target we're going for, and you have that for so long. And then again for this season, we were again put in the relegation zone by most pundits. And you kind of looked at it as a Cobblers fan and went, what are we seeing that nobody else is? Why is it that we're sort of looking at it and going, I'm not suggesting that we were ever going to, try and challenge for the playoffs or anything like that. But to be predicted to be relegated pretty much without really that much of a fight was quite strange from our point of view. I think our expectation as a fan base was to equal or better last season's performance in terms of league position at the end of the season. And I think that's still kind of our expectation, really. We know that we're going to hover around the lower half of mid-table for a fair few games like we are at the moment. But as you've probably noticed this season, it's very tight. And therefore it only really takes 1 or 2 wins to propel you 5, 6, 7 places up the league. And I know that's mainly because it's early days. But I do think we will get to a point where we will kind of level out and end up in that sort of mid from 12th down to maybe 16th block and stay there. Maybe have a bit of a flirt a little bit higher, 1 or 2 weeks. Maybe even the other way as well, where we're flirting down below that number as well. But I think with the players that we've gone and signed this season, I think we're looking pretty good for holding our own in League One this season. I don't see us in any danger, especially having seen some of the teams that do look like they're in danger. We're certainly by no means up to the same level as, say, Birmingham, for example. There's no way we can compete financially with that at all. But we've certainly seen like a new level of player come to us this season, which is nice to see. And it's making our football more entertaining and a little bit odd, because Northampton don't play traditionally the way that we have done in this season so far. So a good season is on the cards, I think, but that's relative to what our expectation is. So, yeah, I think a nice steady mid-table, which may sound a bit unexciting, but for us, actually, we take that.
Before we get on to personnel and the style of play that we can maybe expect when we face it this weekend, I mean, I was doing just generic research at the weekend, and I was wondering who's the fastest team to ever go from Division 4 to the top division, because it's a very topical conversation amongst Wrexham ranks these days, and obviously we're talking all time. And Swansea and Wimbledon both did it in 4 seasons, and interestingly enough, Northampton went from Division 4 to the first division in 5 seasons, between 1960-61 and then the 65-66 season. And that shocked me, because I hadn't even presumed Northampton had ever played in the top flight. And it kind of brings me on to the question in a roundabout way. Where do Northampton Town fans see their place in the Football League? Do you view yourself as a League One club, a League Two club? Because I admit, openly, I was probably one of those people who almost just looked at you as a name this season and thought, they'll be near the bottom of the table, they'll be in a relegation fight because it's Northampton Town. And I guess externally you get a lot of those stereotypes about what to expect from the club. But where do you historically view yourself? Do you feel sort of mid-table League One is about right?
I think it's a really good question, and it would depend on who you ask within our fan base, I think. I'm pretty much a realist. So we have spent the vast majority of our, Football League life in the 4th division, in the bottom division of the Football League. And then over the last 20, 25, 30 years maybe, we've kind of yo-yoed between, the 4th and the 3rd, so League 2 and League 1. And we'll spend the majority of the time down in League 2, and then we'll come up to League 1, we'll have 1, maybe 2 seasons, but that's it, and we go back down, and then it takes us 4 or 5 years to come back up again. I think with that realistic head on, I would class us traditionally as being a top end League 2, lower end League 1 club. The big challenge that I've believed since we were before we were promoted last time, when we were looking to get promoted, and that was always the aim, was that the challenge isn't going to be to get promoted, because we can do that. We've done it lots of times before. The challenge is to then stay in League One and, settle there and stay there for, many years to come. Do essentially what clubs like Shrewsbury have managed to do. But, they've had, I think, 12 years now in League One. And, okay, they've relatively recently mostly been near the bottom end of the table come the end of each season. But they've managed to remain a League One club each year. Whether that will happen for them this year, time will tell, of course. But that's what I sort of perceived as being the challenge for us. We've, I don't think, had more than 2 seasons in League One consecutively for well over 10 years now. Last time, 2015-16, we won League Two. We came up. We lost the manager. Chris Wilder went to manage Sheffield United. Rob Page came in. He didn't do very well, and we ended up being sacked by the December. Then Justin Edinburgh came in. He kept us up, but then started the following season poorly, so he got sacked. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank then took over, and he was awful, and we got relegated. and he was sacked before the end of that season. So it's been a while since we spent more than 2 years at this level consecutively. And so I think most of us have always said, this is what we've got to sort of aspire to do first of all. So first target was to stay in League One for that first season. The next target is obviously to stay in League One for a third season, essentially, and make sure we get a third season. But the way we're sort of doing it is we're looking a little bit higher than that. So we're not just looking at fighting off relegation. We're looking at sort of, maybe not comfortable. Comfortable is not the right word for it, but that little level above where we're not really too worried about looking behind us. So I think now is the time that we need to try and change what history has shown Northampton Town as being. And you've got to start somewhere. And I think we've got a decent manager and that we've got fairly decent owners that are level-headed. They understand the fact that the club needs to actually make some money for itself. It can't just keep going with their with outside investment constantly. So they're aware of their own limitations in that respect, and they won't overspend in order to achieve something. They'll look to, and what we've done for the last couple of years really has been to overachieve in regards to what our budget has us down as being. And I think we're doing quite well. We've had a little bit of extra investment over the last sort of 6 months or so. Nigel O'Kane, a Jersey-based businessman, has invested in the club. And it looks like that's the money that has been being used so far to get us to the next level of quality of player that we've been bringing in. So hopefully we're on the rise, and at least to the point where we're not going to be going back into the basement anytime soon, touch wood.
You've mentioned a few times then the type of players you have attracted this season. Then, if you look through, your squad list, you've got some notable names that fans will be well aware of. Obviously, Welsh fans will be aware of Tyler Roberts. He's on loan from Birmingham City. You've got James Wilson, who has a notable career. Obviously, was on the books at Man United. Sam Hoskins, John Guthrie as well, the captain. Who are the players then that we should watch out for this weekend? And who are the players that you mentioned who maybe have a little bit more about them if we're reading between the lines and you're not used to seeing all the time at this level?
Yeah, so I've talked on our podcast this week a bit about how we seem to be in that transition phase from going from one level of player quality-wise to the next. And so we've got players that fit into both of those brackets, if you like, at the moment. You've mentioned a few of them who have been with us for a number of years now. Sam Hoskins, who has been our top goal scorer for the last 4 years at least, I think. He was the second top goal scorer in League Two in our promotion campaign, behind Andy Cook of Bradford. He was our top goal scorer last year with 15. He may well have ended up getting more, but he got injured after Christmas and then struggled to rekindle that form that had seen him get those goals beforehand. And he did spend quite a little bit of time out of the team with that injury as well. So he's always one that I have to say to look out for, just simply because of the fact that he scores, historically the most goals out of any of the players. But as I said, there's a new breed, if you like, of level of quality of player coming in. You mentioned Tyler Roberts, who is just, for us, has been almost a revelation, really, in terms of his quality. Not really the type of player that I've ever seen us have before, unless it's been a youngster coming through who then goes on to have that kind of playing quality on show in like the Premier League or somewhere else. We sort of get them raw, whereas we've got Tyler Roberts at a really good age, and he's showing that realistically he could still play in the Championship quite comfortably. He shows a lot of class and a lot of skill. He's got a lot of technical ability, and the best way to sort of describe why I think he is that step up from the other players that we've had before was seen on Saturday against Mansfield. Now, we lost that game 2-0 at home, but even Mansfield fans will agree that we were mostly on top of that game. And not that Mansfield were lucky to get that win. They weren't. They scored the goals at the right times to put us behind, and we basically just couldn't find the back of the net. But in the middle of the pitch, we were dominant. And Tyler Roberts would get the ball and end up getting surrounded by 3 players. Now, most times in previous history, when a player playing for Northampton Town in an attacking position like that gets the ball up against 3 players, he will run down a cul-de-sac and he will lose the ball probably, or the attack will just be slowed down to a near death and we have to start again. Tyler Roberts can get out of that situation. He will drop his shoulders. He will do some little tiny bit of footwork that just deceives the defenders that are around him, and he'll get out of that situation much quicker than I've ever seen someone in a Northampton shirt do that before. So he's been like, I'd probably go as far to sort of say that he's been our talisman so far, especially in the last couple of games. So he's definitely one to watch out for. And then the other player that I'd have to mention is Tyreek Fosu. So he's joined us on a short-term contract until the end of the season, where he basically has been out of the game for a year. He was playing for Brentford beforehand in their rise to the Premier League. He is a tiny, quick magician. He has got oodles of technical skill and tricks up his sleeve, but he's also got pace that terrifies the defenders that he's going down against on that left-hand side. So, and I'm sure he will have done his homework, but if Parkinson has done his homework, he will try and limit the amount of times that Fosu has on the ball or even receives the ball. Because I think if he gets the ball, then he causes problems. The big thing will be not allowing him to get on the ball, and that's where you would maybe be able to nullify him. And then lastly, the other player that I mentioned is a young lad called Sammy Shoeshane. I think that's how you say it anyway. He is a holding midfielder. He's on loan from Brighton. It's his first senior loan out of the academy from there. He basically sits in front of our back four and makes us tick. He will always be looking for the ball. He will always look forward, and he will try and get us going at every opportunity. We were worried that we might really miss Mark Leonard, who has moved on to Birmingham in the summer. And we probably still do miss him, but Shoeshane has come in and looks like a really good replacement for him, and maybe even a little bit more direct than Leno was last season. I'd probably say that those are the 3 standout players for you to look at, and then you've got the likes of Hoskins as well, backing them up, and Cameron McGeehan as well, who will make runs from midfield. He scored 10 goals in a Colchester United team last season that didn't do particularly well. His career got stunted. I think it was his leg he broke a few years ago. He ended up going to Belgium to go and basically get back to playing football again. Joined Colchester and played for them last season, and then he's joined us in the summer. So his footballing journey is back with an upward trajectory, and he's already got a couple of goals. I think he's our top goal scorer so far this season, and he will appear in the box at the right time, and that's how he's got his goals so far, just by getting in the right place at the right time and then finishing off moves, which is a really good thing for us to have, I think. So those are probably the ones that Phil Parkinson will make special note of. I'm sure he'll look at everybody else as well, being the professional manager that he is. But yeah, I would imagine. So, yeah, I'd imagine that those are the ones that he'll go.
We have anyway, because like I said, we probably tipped you for relegation, being very Wrexham centric here, just looking at the table the day before Nathan asked me to do my predictions for the new season. You mentioned style of play as well there and how you got on against Mansfield at the weekend. Wrexham notoriously don't keep the ball much. We're very good out of possession. We like to get from back to front very quickly. I'm not sure if the stats still the same, but as of last week, we had the lowest possession percentage out of any team in League One. So I'm guessing you'll have a lot of the ball this weekend. We won't be too worried if you do dictate the tempo for much of the game. What can we expect tactically from Northampton this weekend, and what type of approach do you think would be best suited to you getting the result?
I think we have to kind of look at our win against Huddersfield a couple of weeks ago now, away from home, at a team that is on paper better than us and certainly predicted to finish higher in the table. And I think there's going to be a similarity in that respect here against you guys. It's funny because in that game we had a lower amount of possession than Huddersfield did, but we hit them on the counter, and that's what got us the win essentially. Whereas when we're at home, we tend to try and have more of the ball. Against Mansfield, we had more possession. I would normally expect us to go away to yourselves at the racecourse and allow you to have more possession than we have. But if that's not how you guys play and you want us to almost have the ball, I wonder how that's going to end up panning out, because that might mean us kind of, obviously it will nullify any kind of counter-attack threat that we might have. If you're happy to sort of sit there and allow us to have the ball and you stay in shape and just work us while you're off the ball, then we're going to really have to sort of maybe treat this as a bit more of a home game in the respect of the way that we play. We will look to get the ball from the back four, usually through Sammy Shushain or Jack Sowerby. Both of them play a holding midfield role. And they will then look to spread the ball left-right to get us moving up the pitch. And we'll look to our wide players to then attack you. Tyler Roberts will go and cover every inch of grass in that top third for us. He's not a striker, he's a number 10. On Saturday and the week before against Huddersfield, we didn't play with a recognised striker. We played with a front three of Fosu, Roberts and Pinnock. And it was quite noticeable on Saturday. We did exactly the same thing, and it was noticeable that we weren't playing with a striker. Roberts was always looking to get in the pockets in front of the defence and then looking to try and make space to then go and get a shot on goal. And I think the one thing that we lacked was having a striker that was actually in the box, pinning defenders back and making a general nuisance of themselves. So we could look to change that when we come to face you guys on Saturday. Tom Eaves, who we signed in the summer, hasn't been fit all season. He is the striker that would be that nuisance and would be that focal point up front. And if that happens and he comes back in, he's rumoured to be fit enough to hopefully start on the bench on Tuesday against Bolton, then who knows, he may well start on Saturday, and that will change quite a bit about us, I would suggest, which will mean that I've got no idea how we will actually end up playing, because we're yet to see how we actually would play with Tom Eaves in the team. And he's more of a target man than anybody else that we've got. So it may well be a case that everything that I say about style of play is completely different come Saturday. And knowing John Brady, that would be the kind of thing that he would pull. He would lull the opposition manager into thinking we will play one way and then play differently and set up differently and look to go and do things differently to what we've done all season, and hope that that actually just confuses the opposition to the point where they just don't quite know what to do to actually, where do we need to be to nullify them? And by the time that they've worked it out, hopefully we're in front. So who knows really how exactly we will line up come Saturday. As you said, Rich, before we started recording, it's hard doing these when you've got a game on the Tuesday that we haven't played yet. So we could go and, get a massively heavy defeat, say, against Bolton on Tuesday night, and then literally rip the team sheet up and start again on Saturday. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Northampton Town at home, could be a tricky encounter. They've got a pretty good team, some good players, but it's Wrexham at the Kairos, looking to bounce back and lift the spirits. Can you see it going any other way than a home win?
No, I'll always back us for a home win. You've got to win your. What do they say? Win your home games, draw your away games. I know we lost at Stevenage. I think it was a good point at Leyton Orient. And if you come out of it going, well, we drew at Leyton Orient, we had a bad night at Stevenage, and then you beat Northampton, and suddenly things can look a little bit rosier. Like I say, it's important we don't fall and crumble like Huddersfield have, or like Bolton did. I know Bolton are on the revival now. They beat Northampton the other night 4-2. I think they were 4-0 up and conceded 2 very late goals, so kind of that scoreline looked a lot closer than it was. Things can just change quickly, and things can get out of hand quickly. And I think if Wrexham could just nip it in the bud, yes, it was a bad defeat. There'll be more bad defeats over the course of the season. And dare I say there'll be worse defeats in terms of the manner of that Stevenage one. There'll be games where we're apoplectic, I'm sure, midway through the season. But, we're not on a Huddersfield 6-7 game losing streak. It is one game in isolation, and we need to prove that that's the case. I'm not underestimating Northampton. I think if I've learned anything through the first few weeks of this season, Rich, it's that, everyone is beatable, and that includes us. On their day, everyone can be beaten. I think Birmingham were a different level. I stand by that. They were 2-0 down to Peterborough, come back and win 3-2. It kind of feels inevitable when I check the scores now that they're just going to win games. So kind of, it's in my mind, it's a league without them even in it now. I'm kind of just working from second down, and you'd have to say that no one has proven themselves to be bulletproof, to be another Birmingham Mark II. Blackpool, we were talking about before, and they conceded a 95th minute equaliser to Lincoln at home the other day. That's 2 points dropped for them. They'll be gutted. They'll probably be as gutted about that as we were losing to Stevenage. Just the manner of it. So a lot of teams are going through it. A lot of teams are dropping points, and I think given the quality of the league, I haven't checked previous points tallies, but I'd be interested to look, because I think so many teams will take points off each other that I don't know, maybe the threshold to make the playoffs, maybe the threshold for that second spot might not be as high as you think. It might be a lot of teams on a similar points tally, and it's very nip and tuck. So just take care of business at home. Without Max, it'd be Dan Scarr. I would say, to answer your question earlier, I would say Dan Scarr in the middle, Owen O'Connell on the right. Again,
only took 45 minutes for that. That's fine.
Sorry, yeah. And you know what? I would... I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little bit carried away, because I thought he did look bright when he come on, but I would maybe look at Mendy or Revan again. I'd give him a cleaner rest if I could. I think he just maybe needs it. I would start Mullen at the weekend. I'd maybe go to Mullen and Palmer. I would go with Barney again. Probably the team I would put out on Saturday then, Rich. I would go Okonkwo in goal, obviously. I would go Mendy. I thought he looked bright. You should reward that, really. Mendy, O'Connor, Scarr, O'Connell, Barney, Dobson, Cannon, Lee, Mullen and Palmer is what I would go on Saturday. That freshens it up again, and gives people an opportunity. I'd have Fowle back in the squad. I think Rathbone might be injured. I think that might be the case. So I don't think he's ready, but Fowle in the squad. And just keep freshening it up, because I think, and I'm not sure if Phil Parkinson's the tinker man quite yet, like I am with fantasy football, but he's getting there. I think he's just got to try and figure out different bits of bobs. Like Sutty said last week, Dobson nailed on. O'Connor, if he's fit, I think is nailed on, and Okonkwo, and the rest I think are up there and up for grabs.
Yeah, and like I say, if you make those changes, you go back to a proven strike force, the proven midfield as well, and it's only really your back line. It's a little bit experimental, but they've all got lots of experience. Dan Scarr is by no means just some person plucked from sort of the youth system who's going to be coming out of nowhere. He's a a real good player who's proven at this level. So yeah, we will see what happens this weekend. Then it does look, like it's got the makings of hopefully a Wrexham home win to silence those critics. And of course, we've also got that Papa John's game on the Bristol Street Motors game against Wolves under 21s next week, where you'd expect
up the Papa
people.
John's, mate, up the Papa John's.
Yeah.
Still.
Well, you'd expect people like Fowler and stuff to feature. We'll look back at that next week.
Well, Rich, give me 2 minutes before we finish, because I did get shouted at. I know you cut the segment for fantasy football, but I'm going to quickly show manager
can't you
of
do
the
this
week.
by yourself?
I'm gonna quickly show you the manager of the week, because Reese of the Dubai Reds. I also love hearing from kind of what I call fan groups abroad, Rich, because it is a struggle following Wrexham far away, and Reese from the Dubai Reds very much wanted a shout out. I think let's have a look. Reese, there you go, 100 points. I'm going to give you a shout out there. You got manager of the week last week, Kwame Poku, with 38 points in that double game week. You did clock on to the fact that 3 teams had double game weeks. I gave Rich that secret as well.
I forgot to change my team.
Okay, and D Jones, 126 points. Max Clue at the back. You can see Jay Stansfield, 20 points. Louis Barry, 10 points. You got that last-minute equaliser against Barnsley for Stockport. Birmingham, Blackpool doing really well. Just lots and lots of points. I got 92. I'm 59th. What am I overall? I'm 32nd in the RobRyanRed League. As always, I think the mini league code is in the description. You can join. You're like 500 points behind now, but you'll probably still catch Rich up. There is a trophy on the line. And to the people that are putting in the Spotify comments, please get rid of this segment. Stop using Rich's burner accounts, please.
Oh, people saying that? Fantastic. Yeah, can we have a poll? Can we cut it? Please, let's cut it, because I hate fantasy football.
No.
I hate it with a passion.
I reduced it to 2 minutes there. I usually, actually go in depth on the players, so I've reduced it to...
Maybe it's the way to... Maybe we'll put it right at the end for the diehards.
There
and then
you
you can
exactly.
just finish early if you want to.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. We've got to give Nathan something to look forward to, haven't we? Thank you very much to all of you for joining us on today's podcast. Yeah, enjoy Porto, mate. Tell them all about Barry Horn. Tell them about Wrexham and... spread the word. Maybe you should go in. What was that car? What was the car called that the guy had?
What was it called? There we go. It was the 1997 Geo Metro, aka the Red Dragon.
The 1997 Geo Metro does sound like a competition we played in as well, doesn't it? Actually, we probably. Yeah, I don't know who we would have lost in that.
That's our next route into Europe, mate. Probably the 1997 Geo Metro.
Yeah, let us know on all the usual places what you think of those proposals to potentially move it into European competition. And yeah, keep the faith. Another busy week for Wrexham. 2 matches. We'll see a lot of the squad. Hopefully we'll see some goals and some wins as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Shout out to Red 10 People Development for their continued support of the podcast. Shout out to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, The Stings. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Bay.